Following George Floyd's death in May, Portland was one of many cities across the U.S. to react with massive racial justice protests. More than 2 months later, the Portland protests rage on, even as they have diminished in size in most other places. For many, this is unsurprising since the Oregon city is seen as a stereotypical coastal liberal enclave. But in reality, Portland has been called the whitest city in America, and the state of Oregon has a troubled history of excluding black people. During the pioneer era in the 19th century, Oregon was seen as a beacon of hope for many Americans hoping to go west and create a better life. But that vision did not include black Americans. In Oregon's early history, lawmakers passed a series of so-called exclusion laws to keep black people out of the territory, which later became the state. The first of these laws was passed in 1844 by the Provisional Government, setting a deadline of 2 years for black males and 3 years for black females to leave the territory, or else face a public lashing, according to the Oregon Historical Society (OSS). The territorial legislature passed the Second Exclusion Law in 1849, which forbade black people from entering or residing in Oregon, with the exception of those already in the region. The aim of the law, according to OSS, was to discourage black seamen from jumping ship, out of fear that they would intermix with Indians, instilling into their minds feelings of hostility toward the white race. The final exclusion law was passed in 1857, as Oregon was becoming a state and had its constitutional convention. During the convention, lawmakers decided on whether to be a slave state or not, and while they decided to prohibit slavery, they also passed a law that barred black people from coming to the state, owning property, or making contracts. Oregon's exclusion laws were all eventually overturned by amendments to the U.S. Constitution, and were rarely enforced in their lifetime, but they had their intended effect of discouraging black settlers, OSS says on its website. During the 1920s, the Ku Klux Klan thrived in Oregon, where it had about 35,000 members, the biggest contingent west of the Mississippi River, according to the local Willamette Week. The Klan openly marched through Oregon streets and held rallies in Portland. The white supremacist group was so influential that it even helped Democrat Walter M. Pierce win the governorship in 1923, according to Willamette Week. After it supported Pierce in the race, he backed its bill to require all children to attend public schools, a move intended to stop Catholic education in the state. The Supreme Court ruled that bill illegal 3 years later. According to The Atlantic, black people didn't start moving to Oregon in earnest until World War II created a need for shipbuilders in Portland. To meet the new demand for housing, a community called Vanport was created for the black population to live.